This is my Brooks B17 saddle. I've had it for 9 months now, done 6,000 kilometres. This is what I really think. I wanted to cover cost first because a lot of people will say this saddle's expensive. I don't believe it is. I think it's good value. If you compare it to other well-made saddles, such as a racing saddle like the Physique Arione, or maybe like a touring saddle like this Selle SMP, you'll find they're around the same price or even more. So I think for the materials that go into it, the care of production and the quality you get, this is a good value saddle. I'll give it 8 out of 10 for cost. I'm sure you'll all agree, weight's often not the most important thing with a touring saddle, but it needs to be mentioned. This is quite heavy. It weighs 530 grams. Put that into context, something like a Selle SMP TRK weighs in at 410 grams, and there's plenty of other touring saddles out there that weigh around that 400 gram mark. It's not a bad weight, but I'm going to give it 7 out of 10. This is a well-made, durable saddle. It can last you a lifetime. I've had one back in the 70s. I had it 10 years. It looked absolutely fantastic after 10 years and as good as the very first day I put it on my bike. I should be able to give this 10 out of 10 straight off for durability, but I can't. The reason is, take a look at this. This was after only 100 kilometres and a week. You can see at the corner of the saddle that it's actually starting to fade. And now take a look at it after 6,000 kilometres. I just don't think it's good enough. The dye shouldn't be coming away like this. I'm not impressed whatsoever. I think it's quite poor, quite honestly. So for durability, quality, I'm just going to give them 7 out of 10. Okay, this is probably why most of you are here. The majority of people buying a Brooks B17 are buying it because they want a comfortable, long-term touring saddle. Is this comfortable? I don't think it is, no. I think there's issues with it. For a start off, let's talk about the braking period. Yeah, Brooks say, okay, a couple of 100 kilometres, couple 100 miles, and it should be broken in. Not my experience whatsoever. From the day I got it, it was like sitting on a plank. I did a lot of short rides before I went on tour. And in fact, I had this saddle and rode around on it for 3,000 kilometres before I went on a tour. And these were short rides. We're talking 30, 40, 50 kilometres, nothing too big, nothing too strenuous. And I found it basically uncomfortable. But I stuck with it. It did get a little bit better, but for me, it didn't break in properly. And the other issues I have with it is not only that it doesn't really feel particularly comfortable and it's not molded to my shape, but it's the edge of the saddle. Take a look at this. Now, if you look, you can see here the flaps. These rub into your thighs. And at the very first time when I had this saddle, they felt very, very uncomfortable. And in fact, I started to get sores on the inside of my legs, and I feel it interferes with your leg movement. At one point in the ride, I replaced the Brooks B17 with a Physique Aliante just to see if there was much difference. And yes, I did take a second saddle on tour because I really had my doubts about the B17. And what I found is there was much better leg movement. My legs felt freer and they just didn't feel as constricted. And I just don't think this kind of design of saddle is the best for me. It may be okay for you, but for me, it feels uncomfortable. It didn't break in. It feels restrictive on the thighs. I'm going to give something else a try. And do I think you should? Well, maybe I do, but we'll leave that for later on in the final thoughts. Overall, for comfort, a poor 6 out of 10. Lastly, looks. This is an incredible looking saddle. It looks beautiful. If you have a vintage bike, maybe a racing bike, or you're on tour, it will look so right. As long as you don't put it on a modern bike with a carbon frame, I think you can pretty much put this on any kind of bike. It will look magnificent. 9 out of 10 for looks. I would give it 10, but the fading, I just can't get over. I really can't. The Brooks saddle scores a disappointing 37 out of 50, and if anything, I think I've been a little bit over generous. This is a saddle that could and should be a lot better. Here's my final thoughts. Overall, it's a durable, well-made saddle, but it's just not for me. I didn't find it comfortable, which is a surprise because, as I've told you before, I had one for 10 years and it worked really well for me. Should you buy one? I think if you're lighter, it's not a bad idea, but I would look at alternatives. Yeah, I'm disappointed. I wanted to get on with this saddle. I've given it 6,000 kilometres. It's not as if I haven't tried, but I'll be pleased when I get home and I get my Selle SMP TRK. I'll give that 1,000 kilometres or so riding around, and I'll get back to you and tell you how I feel about that one. But in the meantime, for me, it's not something I would buy. It's just a buy. This one is going, I don't know, maybe not into the bin, but onto the sideboard or onto a mantelpiece just to look at, because it is a really beautiful saddle. Thanks for watching till the end. I'd appreciate your comments. I know a lot of you are going to disagree with what I've said, and that's fine. Just tell me if you have a B17, does it work for you? Or alternatively, if you're touring, what kind of saddle do you use? And what experiences do you have with that saddle? Thanks again. That's all for now. Bye-bye.